The 11th of July, 2025, Friday. And I hope I'm not as discombobulated as I was this morning as I'm trying to speak to points. But yeah, there was just so much that was happening in the morning. And a lot of people had been reaching out to me in the last 24 hours, 48 hours. And, and yeah, so I just had a lot on my mind. And so I just wanted to go over some points before I get into some videos and do some critiques on them. And I just wanted to talk about Canada Exposed. So there was a person I was speaking to that's part of Canada Exposed, and the account has been disabled in the last 24 hours, even though I was going to get this person on my show just to get their version of stories about them possibly getting targeted from people within the government or working for the government, or possibly when I was communicating with him, this could be people that are rogue, that are possibly using their position of authority in order to intimidate people, and or people that again working for the government in various degrees, including crisis actors, role players, or people that are targeting people. Again, it's on their own accord. And not having to do with anything regarding their actual position of authority or leadership, because that is some stuff that I've dealt with before. Where I don't think it's uh, anyway, so I'm not going to get into that. But and so someone did reach out to me today. I'm not going to give any names or anything like that, but just we were discussing some things, and I was very interested in what this person had to say, and was asking me if I wanted to seek asylum in the U.S., which I was clear I absolutely do not want to do. I mean, if you would have talked to me a few years ago. During the COVID era, or when I was talking about what was going on in Russia, Ukraine, and so many other things, absolutely, yes, I would have, because there were things that I was going through. I was being targeted, and I was taking footage. So I had video and photo evidence, all on the record stuff that I provided to law enforcement, etc. And I do believe that there were people that were part of like extremist radical groups, even people that are hired to do things to intimidate people. That I think there were people that were just not liking what I was sharing on my social media because they took it as a certain way, despite the fact, like, for example, the trans stuff that I was talking about, where I was saying that I do believe that like trans people do exist, but I do believe it's at a significantly lower number than what's being reported. And I'm saying that there's people within that community, the LGBT community, that are hijacking it for their own weird fetishes and kinks and whatever else, or because they want to avoid jail time to be served in male jails. For example, I've given countless examples of that. I don't agree with children going through gender reassignment surgery or affirming this people's gender dysphoria. If after puberty, a large percentage of those cases are resolved again just by going through puberty, or targeting children that are likely autistic or have gone through abuse through their lives, or just confused, like in general, because again, like the hormones are through the roof during the reproductive periods, and again, just possibly confused about everything and uncomfortable with like their development, and then people using that, exploiting that, to monopolize on that for money. And so I don't believe that we should be using things like hormone blockers for children, etc. People didn't like that, despite the fact that I was saying that there are people that I believe are genuinely trans. Blair White, for example, and I've shared a lot of her stuff, and she as well has spoken out on these groups of people that are hijacking the community and making it look bad. Gays Against Groom is another account that's now considered for some reason to be like some kind of a right-wing radical group. They're not. And they're just saying, like, just leave the children alone. Don't like introduce like sex into like the into the classroom, especially again when they're even targeting daycares and things like that. It's inappropriate, and so people didn't like that, right? So there were people that came to my house, tried to break into my house. They were circling my block for over 2 hours. I did file a report on that, and I do believe it's possibly people that were part of that group. I did talk about someone named Autumn Rain who doxed my house, and again, that was very intimidating. People knowing where I lived, and anyways, and so these are extremists, and they're not part of government or anything like that. They don't work for the government, and if they do, they might be again like working on their own accord, using their position of power and authority to gain access to people's information, to dox them, and then hiding under that umbrella, which I think is also abhorrent. And so, to be clear, yeah, I'll just get into some conversations I had, because some of the information I shared today, it did garner a lot of attention from people that support me, or that are my friends, or people that are interested in my thoughts on certain things. And so I had someone, again, I'm not going to name, but just reached out to me again and said, "What's your take on the Canadian Armed Forces members being accused of this anti-government militia. Kind of sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me, and the Lib government is spinning it this way. I mean, it definitely sounds like they were taking lots of ammo and stuff. They shouldn't, but I don't know. And so my response to that was, I think it's being blown out of proportion yet again to suit the right-wing white supremacist narrative. And I did a video on that today. I let them know. People are unhappy with this current government at the top. The left-wing radical lunatics in cabinet and key government positions. I was given the example of Brenda Lucky, who has resigned. Like, it's been a few years now, but pushing a woke DEI agenda. And but I was saying, and serving members keep speaking out. Sorry, I said serving members keep speaking up and out, and these asshats are ignoring them. People care about this country and see what they are doing to fit the World Health Organization, Bilderberg supranationalist agenda, and they're getting upset. I said that the people are getting upset, and this person agreed. I said, so that there are so many whistleblowers who are trying to expose the people at the top who are destroying this country, literally all levels of government, including giving the names of cabinet members involved in foreign interference, and nothing is being done. I said we have a two-tier justice system, especially in Ottawa. So even when RCMP, cops, CSIS, whistleblowers come forward with overwhelming evidence, is getting dropped or ignored. And yeah, and so in agreement with that. And so, like, I did want to say, to be clear, there are multiple people that not only reach out to me, but also are now whistleblowers and share this information on various different social media platforms. People that are still serving or retired law enforcement, CSIS, so many different departments, former military, etc., and they're calling this stuff out. And I even said that there was 2 RCMP officers. I've named this before. I've given their data and what they shared, but like even the people within cabinet, again, that were guilty of foreign interference. Christian Freeland was on that list, other people, and nothing is being done about this because the people at the top are stopping this from happening, right? And so there are heroes that are working within all levels of government still in Canada till this day that I talk to on a regular basis, and or follow their accounts. And again, nothing's being done, and it's frustrating. So again, like, we should not be committing any friggin' crimes. That's not the answer. What needs to happen is these people need to be held accountable. There needs to be some kind of a committee or a panel put in place to hold these people accountable, ask the hard questions, and if they can't answer them, then again, further investigation, resignations, and people being fired, votes of non-confidence, whatever, being done. And unfortunately, like, I'll reiterate, people at the top are the ones that are dropping this and pushing this down, and they're not listening to the people that they work with and around, the people that are on the front friggin' lines for a lot of these cases as well. And it's just really frustrating for people. And so people are condemning people that are military or were former military that were part of the Freedom Convoy. And I don't understand why, right? They're fighting for your rights and freedoms, or they were rather, and they did get penalized. Like, I do know people personally that were part of the Freedom Convoy, and they were working in certain organizations, and they were removed from those organizations because of that. Some people got charged, etc., despite the fact that they were peaceful, they were just in attendance. And again, like, what do you do? What do you do about that stuff? And so now that I'm onto the woke DEI stuff, I did want to share a video this morning of a female law enforcement officer out of Manchester who, like, it's awful what happened to her. I feel friggin' bad. And I did share this to a few people. No one's glorifying this. No one's celebrating this at all. Like, everyone I talked to were like, oh my God, like, this is terrible that this happened. And they do believe, because there's quotas to be filled, and it's based on, again, like, getting more people in that are not suited for the job, respectfully speaking. We're not setting them up for success. We're putting them in danger as well if they're not suitable for the job, right? This needs to be merit based. And so, but it's a liability for them, and it's also a liability for the people that they're supposed to be working with and around, right? And so I'm going to show the video of what happened after this woman. She was trying to take down people that were, in my opinion, friggin' crazy criminals, and she got punched in the face, and it was like, it was disturbing to friggin' watch. And she was dropped immediately, but then her partners are the ones that had to try to manage the situation without her. And I'm just going to share the video of what happened afterwards, because it's unfortunate, but again, this is just for people to see. This is for educational purposes, not to celebrate or anything. Just to be clear, this is awful what happened. But anyway. But she wasn't able to get back in the fight, and then she was completely immobilized and destabilized for a significant period of time afterwards. And so this is not someone, respectfully speaking, that would be suitable for the infantry. When you see a lot of stuff, you go through a lot of stuff, and you still need to like be in the fight, if that makes any sense.
You're right. Sit down for me. 16257. All right, okay. I'm here, right? It's 5 deep breaths. Deep breaths, all right. You're fine. You're fine. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. Okay. You're all right. Sit down for me.
There was a longer video as well with other law enforcement officers that were trying to help her, and it's just unfortunate that this happened. But again, this is for like a lesson to people, right? Did she have use of force training? Did she have unarmed combat? Did she have advanced unarmed combat? Did she have MMA? Did she do kickboxing? Did she do boxing? Did she do was there any skill sets that she could have applied there to keep herself in the fight? I would argue possibly not. And when we're too busy on training people on woke DEI narratives instead of actual skills and drills that are required to do the job, I think we're not doing a service to anyone. And so I did want to talk about that, and then get onto videos about what was happening, what has been coming out about Brigitte Macron. And so the defamation lawsuit was dropped, and oh, that was not the one I wanted to show, but I'll show this as well, because there's another person that hung himself allegedly, and someone else that was going to be exposing Brigitte Macron possibly being a man.
Whether it was suicide or whether it was foul play, so up against some very dangerous people. He even chaired a commission that was tasked with probing that transaction. He publicly condemned Macron. And then he decided he was going to publish a book. He was due to publish a book about the corruption of this deal this September. But now, you guys, rather conveniently, he's been found hanging in his home, a noose around his neck. Just 3 days ago, this guy was found hanging, Olivier Marley. Authorities have not yet determined whether it was suicide or whether it was foul play. So we'll leave it at that. I will just say these sorts of suicides are timely. I would say if they do rule it to be a suicide, it's going to be timely, because for those of you who have watched the Becoming Brigitte series, there just seems to be a lot of bad luck to people that happen to the individuals that are courageous enough to look into this couple. And don't worry, you guys, I'm all over it. Talking to Xavier, we're going to bring you as much as we can bring you and tie everything together for you. The Epstein picture, the American picture, the Israel picture. Yes, we are aware that doing this stuff is dangerous, but since it seems that all of the men that are in office, particularly here in America, don't have the courage to do it, what they're really doing is they're saying, we don't care what happens to your kids in the future. We are content with letting perverts rule the world. So
another suspicious death of people that were possibly calling out corruption within that family, the Macron family. So I'm now onto the court case itself, because everyone's sharing this and they're saying, oh, guaranteed a man. This doesn't guarantee that. And so let me just say, so the court overturns libel convictions of 2 women who said French First Lady was a man. The 2 women had been found guilty of libel by a lower court for spreading false claims about Brigitte Macron's gender. This is from Le Monde with AFP, posted yesterday. So a French appeals court on Thursday, July 10th, overturned convictions against 2 women accused of libel against French First Lady Brigitte Macron after they spread what they're alleging is to be false claims that she used to be a man. I do believe there is a lot of evidence that corroborates the fact that this is possibly Jean-Michel Trognon. And if you look at the Candace files, like she did a series on this, and she does provide a lot of compelling evidence that would also suggest that. And so take a look at that. And again, I've done videos on that as well. But again, this was I believe, well, this was obviously a civil case, and just because they were found not guilty of libel, that doesn't prove that Macron was a man. It just means that they're, again, like this defamation lawsuit or whatever, like there wasn't enough evidence to substantiate charging these women for that, so it was dropped. And so there's two very different things. So damage to Macron, 5,000 euros to her brother. The Paris Appeals Court on Thursday let them off, arguing they had made the mistake in good faith. The defendants will no longer have to pay the damages. The court did not provide further explanations. So again, we need to unpack that court case further, get more information on it. Why was it dropped? Why were they saying that why were they saying that the mistake was done in good faith? I don't know. But again, it's not enough. This is not enough evidence to confirm or deny anything, in my opinion, right? We need more information on that. But I do think that Brigitte Macron is a man. And even I'm saying that that's just not enough evidence to substantiate or justify that. So I don't think that Candace Owens is right yet. I'm saying right yet, but I don't think she should be getting the over $100,000 or $140,000 from Pierce Morgan yet, because her claim is that Brigitte Macron is a man, and that specific court case is not good enough. Candace Owens' series that she put together on Macron is excellent, but again, two different things. All right, on to this is Megyn Kelly. So did Pam Bondi lie about the Epstein files and embarrass Trump and Megyn? With Liz Wheeler. I did want to share this because it was very interesting. I was listening to this tonight and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get on and do a live, because after this I was looking at another clip, and then she had on Viva, and I freaking love his work. And then I looked into more of Viva's work, and he had Benny Johnson on, and it was all very interesting. And I'd also like to, again, provide some commentary on that as well.
So you go back to that day outside after we'd run into the press, we're taken down to our phones, and we begin to break this story. We post that picture that I posted holding the Epstein files. My intention was within 30 seconds, because that's how you game the X algorithm. You do a post, then you do the second post on the thread. Everyone knows this. My intention was to say, but this is the real story.
You just taught me something. I did not know that. Keep going.
It works like a dream.
Actually, before I even start that, I do want to say that I don't want people to think that by me not calling out, but sharing that video regarding this female cop, that and people that are pushing the woke DEI agenda, and how there's now quotas in multiple different government organizations, especially in Canada. I do know incredible women that are in these organizations, and again, they are value added. These are not these are absolutely merit-based positions. And Helen Bruce is one example. I have so many other examples of, as well, of people I worked with. And even when I went to West Point, there was incredibly strong, incredible women that I met when I was there. And so there are incredible women that are suited for the job. And so these are the women that need to be, again, highlighted and promoted. So anyway, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Unless, of course, you're in this situation. Then it gives the White House 30 seconds to tell you that actually there's an embargo on the story, because they don't want President Trump to be asked during his press conference with the UK Prime Minister only about the Epstein files. So suddenly, Megyn, I find myself in this position where I'm like, oh no, because I also am, chronically on X, and I see that those media photos that were taken of us out back weren't just posted to a random website somewhere. They were starting to catch fire online. And it starts to look like the train wreck unfolding before my eyes that it was. People, and I understand why they felt this way, they start to think, oh, these influencers are being gatekeepers. They're engaging in clickbait, all of these things, which you make a decision at the beginning of your career when you're in this business. Are you going to be bombastic? Are you going to be hyperbolic? Are you going to engage in clickbait? Are you going to be ethical? And anybody who, I've been in this business a long time now, 10 years, more than 10 years. Anybody who's ever listened to me, watched me, or read my work knows that I made the choice not to do that. I'm very transparent with my audience. I'm very honest. I don't engage in hot takes, even if it might get you more clicks, because it's not the right thing to do. So I'm, of course, personally infuriated at this point, because this makes it look like I'm doing what I don't do. So I am frantically behind the scenes, in the Uber in Washington, D.C., screaming at the White House via text message, please let me post this. Do you understand what's going on? Not just from my personal perspective, but the way that it's making the administration look. Bureaucracy takes forever. It was at least an hour before we got permission to post the real story, and the damage by that time had already been done. So again, I held my tongue about this for a while because I thought, okay, maybe this unforced error was a
Let me just say this.
lapse in judgment.
For me as an outsider, and I'm only sort of an outsider, right? Because I'm a member of the press and I know the administration well. But my experience of it was not, for whatever it's worth, that you guys were engaging in clickbait. I saw you guys as a bunch of innocent victims of the whole thing. I was like, these are, of course, I know all of you.
I agree.
At least by your tweets and so on. And I think this is a very loyal group to the president. This is a group that's been important to the president's election. This is a group that helped provide context, throughout the entire campaign when the mainstream was lying.
Yep.
This is part of the group that would try to set the record straight, provide additional facts and context. So there's no way this White House would willingly want to embarrass this group. So they've invited them to the White House, clearly. They've given them these binders that read, Epstein file. They've allowed them to be photographed holding the binders. And those photos hit the internet. And then within, a very short time after the photos hit the internet I don't even remember how it came out, but it was like, there's nothing new in there. There's nothing new. There's nothing new. And then the narrative kind of caught hold, like,
airport.
Well, they've been embarrassed. Why? They've been embarrassed because now here they are holding up the binders and there's nothing new. And all I could think was, this is something you would do to people you don't like. This is something you would do to people whose credibility you wanted to undermine. Yeah. But I never felt like you guys were guilty of doing clickbait. I felt like somebody in the administration has totally dropped the ball here. Why would they tell you guys there was something new or noteworthy or celebratory or in any way to show in these binders with the label on them if there weren't? Why would they do? And to this moment, I still don't understand that. Even hearing you, I'm like, why would Pam Bondi, if she said to you even at the time, there's nothing great in here, but I'm waiting on additional documents I just found out about, and I'll give you those. Why would she go through the exercise of the binders, which anybody would know had the potential to embarrass you? Why would you ever want to hold something up, as like exciting if it was all old news? That's like a sin of journalism. Every journalist knows you don't want to tout something as big that's literally old news. And to this moment, I don't understand, Liz, whether it's because Pam Bondi was negligent in making sure, like, what's exactly in this binder, and does she know there's actually nothing new? You're about to humiliate people who care about you, or because she had some other motive. I don't know.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving the benefit of the doubt to us that day. Not everyone in our movement gave the benefit of the doubt that way, and did accuse us of clickbait, which, I mean, like I said, you can look at my work. That's not the case. Yes, the question that you pose is a question that, believe me, I've asked myself a million times, and I've done my due diligence trying to investigate. The phrase that I used, I mean, I went live from the airport like 30 minutes after this meeting because I had to fly back home to my kids, and I wanted people to understand exactly what had happened. The only part of the story that I didn't tell that day was the part about Pam Bondi bragging about making that cover sheet. And maybe I should have told that right then and there, because maybe that would have made it obvious that Pam Bondi should have been fired on the spot for what she did. The only explanation that I can think of, and this is an explanation that is based on a pattern of Pam Bondi's behavior, is that she wasn't telling the truth. Not necessarily because she's corrupt and trying to hide the contents of the Epstein files, but because she's click thirsty, because she was more interested in making these big promises on Fox News, being a
Yep, she was all over Fox News. I think it was clickbait, unfortunately. There was and I do want to address some things as well, because so many different people that I had communicated with in the past, like, it's really frustrating me that there's this, like, and again, I don't trust Trump on a lot of different things, and I have called him out on a lot of things as well, but again, who am I? But when it comes to the Epstein list, like, even years ago, and I'm going to get to that later as well, he was calling out Jeffrey Epstein, and even with the Mar-a-Lago thing, having him kicked out, and even admitting that he liked the younger girls and all of this stuff, and there have been periods of time where people are even admitting that there were times, like even on the flight, for example, when they intentionally brought on young girls, and again, this was for photo ops and a try possibly to attempt some kind of a blackmail scheme with Trump. But again, there's not enough evidence to paint him as like a friggin' pedophile or whatever people are trying to friggin' paint him as, there's not enough evidence. And unfortunately, people are saying, oh, look at all these photos and stuff like that. But again, that is not enough. And I'll carry on with that afterwards. But I think that people are possibly getting it wrong in that case. And why are people focusing on Trump when there are so many other people where there are emails, where there are text message exchanges, where there are people admitting the fact that the Clintons, why are we forgetting about the Clintons? Why are we forgetting about the Obamas? Why are we forgetting about Podesta? Why are we forgetting about Comey and all these people that are guilty, in my humble opinion, of crimes, and not focusing on that, like actual tangible evidence and data coming out that does make it where they're guilty. And what are we just going to forget about them? What, they just get to like live lives, happily ever after, with not ever being friggin' held accountable and going to jail? These people need to go to jail. So again, if we're not going to give up on the Epstein list, then we shouldn't be giving up on the Clintons or multiple people that I just mentioned that are linked to pedophilia and human trafficking and crimes against humanity and false flag events and so many other things.
Fox News star and a
Well, there's actually proof.
mega champion, and she got out over her skis, promising things that she hadn't verified. And that's the root of this week. I said, listen, if I'm President Trump, I am looking at what Attorney General Pam Bondi has done to the base. He has lost his administration, even though he had nothing to do with this. His administration has lost a tremendous amount of goodwill with voters because people care viscerally about the Epstein files. Yep. They care deeply about this, partially because these are grisly crimes that were committed against children, but also because this represents justice. We have been harmed so many times by the deep state, whether it's parents being told we're terrorists because we didn't want trans ideology and critical race theory being indoctrinated into our children, whether it's being censored on social media or arrested outside of the Capitol because we had questions about the 2020 election, whether it's pushing back against COVID vaccine mandates. We have been vilified and demonized and targeted and subject to violence. And we voted for President Trump because he promised justice. Justice does not mean memory holing all of these bad things, this harm that was inflicted on us. It means finding the people who committed the crimes, charging them with those crimes, holding them accountable in a court of law, and sending them to prison for what they've done. And people feel stung because when they see what Pam Bondi said in that Department of Justice memo on Sunday, she is telling us, ignore the evidence, the anomalies, the suspicious, fishy things surrounding Epstein's operation and his person and his connections and his death, and instead believe me without evidence. She's telling us to ignore what's before our very eyes and believe her instead with no evidence. And Megyn, there is not a politician in this world that you should extend that amount of blind faith towards. So,
well, she's put us in a position of having to decide which of her statements we're going to credit. I mean, which one should we put the faith in? Because, we kind of put the faith in the statement from February 21st, and then the statement she followed up with on February 26th, and then the statement she followed up with on March 3rd, and then the statement she followed up with on May 7th, all of which kept spinning this tale of, I've got the goods, I'm getting even more goods, you're going to see the goods, this man's a filthy animal, and you're not even going to believe what I've seen. That she just seeded that trail ever since she took office. And then instead of coming out on camera Sunday night or Monday, when she purportedly realized there was absolutely no there other than the child pornography found on his computer, not involving third parties, like other than, Jeffrey Epstein's predilection of, disgusting random porn, and saying, I got it wrong. I overpromised and I'm under-delivering, and I'm sorry. She leaked to Axios a 2-page unsigned memo with absolutely no explanation, none whatsoever, and literally thinks that's enough. And then, unfortunately, we had the cabinet meeting where Trump seemed fine with all of that, where he kind of stepped in, was like, why are we still talking about this thing that I talked about repeatedly on the campaign trail and did tell you was an issue that we needed to get to the bottom of and that I would, and then elevated two guys who talked about it all the time on their shows, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, to run the FBI, the very organization that was at the heart of the investigation, And another person, Pam Bondi, who once I put in the office, has been talking about it every other week, and now looks at us and says, why would you still be interested in this? Do you even want to answer that question? And Pam Bondi thinks she's putting it under the rug by being like, oh, there's a missing minute of the tape, but that's just because they always change over at 1 minute before midnight and we lose a minute of tape, which everybody was like, what? And also, when I said client list is on my desk, I really just meant file. Bye. It's just been totally insufficient, Liz, totally insufficient. Yeah. And no sane human being would at this point be saying, oh, okay, I have no more questions. It's all answered for me.
Exactly. And listen, President Trump is smart. He's strategic. He probably has a finger on the pulse of his base better than any politician that I've ever experienced in my lifetime. I do think he's misreading his base on this one. There's a story actually that country singer John Rich tells about having dinner with Trump. And during this dinner, Trump turns to him and says, why do people boo at my rallies when I talk about the COVID vaccine? And then President Trump sat there and he listened to John Rich's answer. And John Rich said, because, Mr. President, people have been hurt by the jab. And President Trump listened to what John Rich said. And I think that this is one of those moments that President Trump should listen to his base, because people have been hurt by the deep state. And that's what people are associating the Epstein files and the indications that there may have been a government cover up, or at least a lack of transparency and a lack of honesty when communicating all of this to us. That's what people associate this with.
I have more clips to play. And I will say as well that there are people that have been involved with the Epstein drama, that where it was a matter of they were cheating on their wives or their boyfriends, they didn't, or husbands or their significant others, and they didn't want that to be known, or they were interested in, like, bisexual. They didn't want people in the public to know that, on their private time they were, possibly like exploring with their own sex. But again, it's 2025. People don't give a shit about that. But again, like people that are celebrities or politicians that again didn't want this information to get out to the public for whatever reason. And so this was another reason why they were getting blackmailed. And so these were people that were consenting adults. But again, when you have the possible ramifications being divorce or separation, or I guess being embarrassed, or thinking there's going to be more judgment than there will be, this is also another reason why people were getting blackmailed. So again, there's politicians that are on that list, celebrities, and these people, they may not necessarily have been committing crimes, but they were pushing agendas that were further restricting or limiting freedoms and rights of Americans and Canadians and people internationally because of the propaganda and the psychological operations that they were pushing. And again, this also harmed us, and it wasn't truthful. And they were doing it possibly because they were being blackmailed, and they didn't want this information to come out, despite the fact that it wasn't criminal in nature. And a lot of celebrities on that list
associate it with the fact that they want justice for COVID. They want justice for Russiagate. They want justice for the phony Ukraine impeachment. They want justice for the lawfare against President Trump. They want justice for the assassination attempts. They want justice for the...
Was it assassination attempt? I'm still... Again, you've seen my videos on that. So this was again, it's a longer video that she just posted a few hours ago. I will link the full video, but I do like these shorter clips of it. So what Pam Bondi's attention-seeking past Epstein comments tell us about her with Liz Wheeler. And so Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, I do believe that, they're unfortunately in a position where they're being gagged for whatever reason. They can't share information. And I think that, and again, this is just conjecture at this point, but that Kash Patel was saying that, if Dan Bongino is saying that he wants to resign, he might not want to work anymore within the government and maybe go back to Rumble. And so Kash Patel allegedly is saying that if Dan Bongino does that, then he's going to leave as well. And I think what might possibly happen, again, I don't know, but that Pam Bondi might be forced to resign just because of how she handled this whole thing.
What was your own personal interaction like that day when you saw Pam Bondi? I'm sure you spent some time with her. Like, how did she seem to you?
She was not exactly, well, let's just say this. In the days leading up to that meeting, this was during the time that President Trump was nominating his different cabinet secretaries in the upper echelon of his administration. I had made a list of who I thought was the best pick and, all the way down to who I thought were the worst picks. And Pam Bondi was towards the bottom of that list because I didn't think that she had the experience to deal with the swamp. I didn't think that she had a proven track record of outsmarting the swamp. I think she had shown incredible loyalty to President Trump during his impeachment proceedings. She'd been one of his attorneys, I believe. And that was essentially the reason it appeared that Trump picked her. So I didn't go in there. I went in there open-minded, but I didn't go in there thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be the coolest meeting of all the meetings. Not that I was aware of who we were going to be meeting with in the first place. I walked next to her when we went from the cabinet secretary room, the meeting room, across the hall to the Oval Office. I was the one who happened to walk next to Pam Bondi. And, she was talking to me a lot about what it had been like in the Department of Justice in I think it had been 2 weeks since she had taken the oath of office. And she said she was tired. She hadn't done a lot of sleeping. And she did a lot of complaining about Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna to me because Congresswoman Luna had been asking a lot of questions about, hey, where are these files that were promised? How come I, as part of the Oversight Committee in Congress, am being excluded from the Department of Justice's effort to release these? And Pam Bondi did a lot of complaining about how Congresswoman Luna just didn't understand how this worked and these things take time. And didn't she understand how busy she was? And I have to say, I was a little off put by that. I was just like, oh, well, okay, that's what you're focusing on, even though you have the Justice Department to run. Then when we were in the Oval Office, President Trump is introducing us. There were probably 20 other people in the Oval Office at the same time, in addition to us. And he's pointing people out. He's like, yeah, this is Stephen Miller. He's doing a great job. Oh, this is a hero, Tom Homan. He's doing a great job. And he's pointing out different people. And then I hear Attorney General Pam Bondi's voice from the back of the room. She was sitting on one of the sofas. She goes, what about me, Mr. President? And to be perfectly frank here, the thought that went through my mind was, wow, that was a real pick-me girl comment. I did not think that was a good reflection on the strength of her character. Now, you can say, okay, that's just a comment. Does that actually reflect on her ability at the Department of Justice or not? I don't know. I'll let you decide. But maybe it demonstrates her effort or her desire to be a mega champion and to be a Fox News star because she was demonstrating, again, a pattern of wanting attention.
Mm-hmm. And he did not give her the attention when he tweeted out about Dan and Kash last week when they came under fire. Was it as recently as Monday? I can't remember.
It was after the memo.
It was after the release of the memo. It had to be because that's when they were getting pummeled. And he sent out a complimentary tweet about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and notably said nothing about Pam Bondi. So I do wonder what the president thinks about all this and what the president knows. Haven't yet figured out whether this is a Trump directive thing, like we're moving on from Epstein for reasons we don't understand, whether they're intel reasons or other reasons. But I definitely think if the president said to these three, we're done with Epstein, it would explain all of the behavior of this past week, not Pam Bondi's behavior prior. Because that I do see a real split here. And I don't mean to just side with Bongino in this because I care about him and he's a friend. I don't know Kash Patel at all. I mean, if this is the logic, I'd throw anybody I don't know that well under the bus, then he should be under the bus too. But what I've seen since the beginning of the administration is those two guys who were very focused on Epstein prior to taking the roles have said nothing. They have said they have not done the little breadcrumb trail from the moment of taking office. They've said nothing. And the first thing we saw from them was on Fox and Friends, where we were all shocked to hear them saying he killed himself. I mean, that's just what the evidence is. And if you have something to prove me wrong, show me. But I'm telling you, you're going to see some. We saw Kash on Joe Rogan being like, if I had evidence of him with all these, little girls, or if I had a third parties with young girls, don't you think I'd show that to you? And Rogan seemed to be saying, so what you're saying is you don't have it. And Kash is basically just saying, if I have it, you'll see it. And we haven't seen it. So they didn't do what she did. And I've, over the course of the past 4 days, gotten to where you I think are, which is, I think she was thirsty for attention. I think she was enjoying the hits on Fox, on Hannity, on Waters, in the middle of the day.
And Hannity is also a traitor, respectfully speaking. And I will say that there's been people that have worked in and around him and Mark Levin that say that he's been pressured a lot by Mark Levin to push the narrative he's been pushing. And so I don't completely blame him for Project Esther, the Heritage Foundation, like what they're pushing, this propaganda psychological operation stuff. But and I also wanted to mention that the Southern District of New York, SDNY, I am convinced, prove me wrong, but that they have also destroyed a lot of the evidence that does, and whether they're protecting people that are in their network, and so I think that's enough for Pam Bondi, because again, just talking about her is freaking making me want to roll my eyes. But Dershowitz, whether you like him or not, because people are saying like, how dare he defend Epstein, as part of his lawyer team, but he has spoken out saying that the reason why he was doing that because everyone deserves a fair trial, and so whatever. However, this is very interesting to me. So Dershowitz says he knows Epstein client list names, but I'm bound by confidentiality. And there's a clip on this as well. This is from The Hill. Again, don't trust everything they say. But Sean Spicer resurfaced on Thursday a March interview with Alan Dershowitz, in which the attorney said he knows all about the list of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged clients. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. Dershowitz said during an appearance on the Sean Spicer Show that was originally broadcast on March 19th and was reposted on social media this past Thursday. He's saying, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. He added, noting at one point he was falsely named as a client. And are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Yeah. This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all the things. Oh, this was Trump's comment on that. And people are still talking about this guy, this creep. That is unbelievable, Trump said Tuesday to a reporter who asked about the convicted sex offender and financier. This question was actually directed at Pam Bondi, and he took it, which is also very interesting. The White House has maintained that there is no client list, a narrative that some question. I think what's really just astounding about this recent disclosure from the government is that they know they are sitting on a treasure trove of information and they're not turning it over. And I've worked on these cases for over 10 years now. There's a plethora of information that the public has not been able to see relating to Epstein and his co-conspirators. Sigurd McCauley, who is representing several Epstein victims in their civil cases, said during an appearance on a news station this week. So it goes on from there. One more video. I was saving the best for last. It was very interesting. So this is from Viva Fry, posted just 4 hours ago. I think he's doing a live right now too, or maybe he just finished. But so the title is "It's Getting Worse." Trump's admins Epstein debacle isn't going away. My interview with Benny Johnson. This was very interesting to me, and again, I just watched it, and I'm like, I need to go live and do this.
Benny, what the hell's going on with the Epstein stuff? All right, first I don't need to introduce you. Everybody knows who you are. Benny, what the hell is going on? I want your take before I go off the rails on this. What do you think is happening? And are you taking flack for being reasonable, or some would say critical, of how the administration is dealing with the Epstein issue?
So let's go back to the beginning. Why is there an Epstein issue at all? If you go back and check the tape, way back in 2015, you'll find that President Trump was the first man, then candidate Trump, was the first man in the political arena ever to mention the name Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody had ever even talked about it before. Donald Trump brought it up because he knew how utterly toxic, nuclear, and criminal the Epstein enterprise was as it related to running against Hillary Clinton, for the White House. And he brought it up, and he's told the world, before we knew about Epstein's Island, before we knew about Prince Andrew, he said it live on stage. It was a genius move. President Trump brought Jeffrey Epstein into the political arena because he knew what an absolute cesspool it was. And he said so live on stage at CPAC, and you can tell the audience doesn't even know what he's talking about. So anyway, I just want to first off thank Donald Trump for that. Without Donald Trump, we probably just really wouldn't know. There wouldn't be the kinetic value to the Epstein question, and it's part of Trump's lore. According to the police officers in Palm Beach, it's President Trump who tipped them off that Jeffrey Epstein was a pedo, that Jeffrey Epstein was doing untoward things in Palm Beach. And according to the prosecutors who put away Epstein the first time in Florida, before the feds let him off on a sweetheart deal.
And again, there might be a lot of things we can slam Trump about, and I have, but even like kicking him out of Mar-a-Lago, or Mar-a-Lago, however you pronounce it, as well, like years ago, because of his reputation.
In fact, Jeffrey Epstein should be in prison for the rest of his life if he was just properly charged in 2008. According to the prosecutors, Donald Trump was the only guy to ever help them out. So I just want to lay the groundwork here, Viva. that Donald Trump has a commendable history with this topic, and that he had worked, that he's done good work, right, to put Epstein in prison. So that's why this heel turn, I don't get, and I don't understand at all. I don't understand, because what's happening right now is the sins of past administrations and past corruption is now shadowing, palling, and smearing good people, I think, who have good intentions inside of the Trump administration. And it's now it's because of what I believe to be incompetence, mismanagement, lack of a handling, lack of an understanding of the of the power of this topic and the rabid interest in it. Now there are people who are unfortunately going to be suffering major career dings and real lacks of trust with the American people on this topic, on this issue. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because they didn't have to be this way. Donald Trump has a great record on this subject, and he promised that he'd be.
And people are alleging that there's close to 250 victims. There's the possibility that there's over 1,000 victims. No one wants to see the footage or the videos of the victims or them to be named at all. That at least that I know of or that I'm tracking. It's about getting the people that are the criminals to be held accountable. Just to be clear,
releasing everything, and here we are.
And it's
not about
re-victimizing the victims. It causes people to legitimize what I think are bona fide either conspiracy theories or just stupid theories that Trump is on the list. I don't believe for a bloody second that Trump is on the list, but now you can't as easily write off, well, someone in
if
Trump.
He's on the list, again, it could be because of the flight, the travel. It could be like other things, right? But I do agree that there's not anything that I'm tracking where he was with underage children.
Orbit must be on the list. The list. We're using it colloquially, people. Nobody thinks there's a to-do list or a client list on Epstein's fridge. Everyone understood what was meant by the client list. Jeffrey Epstein was sex trafficking children to people. Not. I don't know. Maybe you could get convicted for sex trafficking to yourself. Everyone always understood Prince Andrew was involved. It wasn't procuring children to traffic to himself. Everybody always knew that for the last decade. And you're right. Trump put it on blast and not normalized it, but exposed the world to it.
No one's talking about Bill Gates anymore.
Totally. He mainstreamed Epstein. So if you go back, we've done a ton of research on this. Actually, it was Trump first who mainstreamed Epstein as a genius move to use against the Clintons in 2016. And it worked, of course.
The question is this. It's a personal question because you are close with, say, administration. You get to you do great work. I think the administration likes you, and you get into Alligator Alcatraz, and you get the hat and the merch. Do you feel any, if I can ask this, pushback or sinister feeling that the administration, it's not just bungling it, but that they want the most prominent vocal spokespeople on this to shut their mouths? And I'm talking about you.
No, I haven't gotten any call like that. I've made a ton of calls myself to find out what the hell is happening here. Why do you have friends? The best friends that you got are the ones that can correct you when you're wrong and that can stop you from getting in a bar fight, right? Where you're going to get your ass kicked. Those are your best friends. Okay. The bad people, your bad friends, your shitty friends are the ones that let you get your ass kicked. Right. And I want to stop that from happening. I'm trying to help. And so I'm calling around to try and figure out what's going on here. And I've been met with two responses. One is not going to surprise you, and one will. The first response that I've gotten from inside the White House and the administration is extreme frustration and anger at how this has been rolled out. So I'm assuming, Viva, I haven't been told this directly, but I'm assuming, and it's just a basic assumption, that it's the intel agencies that are putting a stop to this and that are saying sources and methods can't touch it, don't talk about it, put an end to it now. We know that Ehud Barak, Prime Minister of Israel, was in and out of Epstein's apartment, that he was business partners with him, right? So you're bringing down entire Israeli political parties now, okay? Entire Israeli, maybe intelligence operations. We'll see. Dershowitz was on my show. Dershowitz says totally plausible that he was an intel agent for Mossad. In fact, Dershowitz says, I brought him to Israel once and set him up with the Israeli government. Insane mission. But anyway, the point is, let's take it prima facie, okay? This guy, and Intel has stopped all of this. Intel has stopped it, and this is the conclusion they have to come to. Well, then why, do it this way? Why leak it to a liberal reporter at Axios who hates you in the dark of night on 4th of July weekend after a series of historic Trump victories, Viva? It's maddening. It's the worst possible release. The worst possible release. It's like it's intended to do the maximum amount of damage to Trump and his base. And it enrages me. And I've heard that from inside, those frustrations from inside of the administration, that the rollout here was insane.
To highlight an undated, unsigned document that no one, as far as I know, other than Caroline Levitt, has spoken to, not Pam Bondi, not Kash Patel. And I floated that theory that, if one were intending to discredit, demoralize the movement, you go after the most vocal populist spokespeople or actors in that movement, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino being two of them, and you do something that would be utterly embarrassing for them to have to either admit if indeed what they've been saying is wrong, or frustrating that they can't speak out if what is being told now is wrong and they were actually right.
And Dan Bongino, again, this might be conjecture, but he's claiming he may resign if Pam Bondi doesn't.
When you talk about the Intel community,
I think he was thrown under the bus.
I guess the question is, who are you talking about? Because people are going to say it's Bongino, it's Patel, deputy director of the FBI, or what's her face, Bondi, who's the AG. I think that there are holdovers and saboteurs within the Intel community. And I'm just curious, when you say the Intel community is saying shut it down, who is that? Is that the deep state apparatus within the government?
I would say it's the CIA. Based on all the interviews and research that we've done on our program, I would say it's the CIA. Ask yourself, which intel agency, Viva, needs to operate off the shores of the American homeland? Which intel agency would be able to operate on an island in international waters?
They're working with intelligence companies as well, just like Oz, AWZ in Canada, and countless others. It's ridiculous. We are being overrun by the deep state that works internationally, these supranationalists, these people that are part of the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, Bohemian Grove people, the Bilderberg groups, the friggin' monarchy, you friggin' name it. There's so many friggin' deep state ties and connections that are pushing, or I call them the steering committees, that are, I think, just destroying the friggin' world at this point. And yes, Bill Gates is involved in that as well.
It's not hard to do the math there. And if Jeffrey Epstein, and we know that he had connections, of course, throughout the world and with foreign intel agencies, not just the Israelis, but also the French and the British.
Yeah.
Could the CIA put a stop to this? Well, they already did, right? They already did very publicly with Alex Acosta. He belongs to Intel. Shut up. Let him out of jail. Well, he's guilty as sin. He's he's molesting these little girls. Put him out of jail. He belongs to Intel. He's held up his end of the bargain. Now let him free. They've already pulled that card before. They're most likely pulling it again. And here's what I found out in my calls. In my calls to various sources inside of federal law enforcement and the Department of Justice, FBI, and so on, I found that the FBI doesn't have anything. Truly. The FBI doesn't house or keep this type of evidence. And this type of evidence is actually cloistered in the Southern District of New York, because that's where the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was. It's where the Epstein trial was about to be before he killed himself in his prison cell. And that all the preponderance of evidence, everything you've seen, all the photos you've seen from his mansions, the raid of his island was done by the NYPD. Look closely at the raid footage. You can see NYPD officers there.
James Comey, I think he's a criminal. And his daughter, Maureen Comey, who was a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York for the Ghislaine Maxwell case and for the Diddy case and others as well. And I think these are people that are burying evidence and doing show trials.
On Little St. James. All of that was hoovered up to New York, where they have this really tight seal on the evidence itself, where the lawyers out of the Southern District of New York, they all go to these white shoe law firms, right? They all have it's called the independent state because they don't like to answer to main justice. And that's where all of the evidence is under seal. It is not sitting in a drawer at the FBI. It is not under a bed at the DOJ. It is there. And I have that on some pretty high-powered authority. Now, the DOJ can step in and can request that evidence, but be it that it's under seal and Ghislaine Maxwell is appealing her case, a judge is going to have to allow that. And they're going to have to like make a ton of motions in order to get that. Typically that evidence is only available to the attorneys and the judge.
But the degree to which I'm being gaslit, I question my own memory. We were told back in the day, FBI was alleging that the SDNY head office was withholding, concealing, or transporting Epstein documents. Bondi, I'm not going crazy, right? She issued what we called a stern letter at the time. It was either her or Kash Patel. And now we're just here, they're literally just saying, we've got the entire file. There's nothing to see here. That never happened. How do you try to erase that memory in real time?
I don't know. I'm just saying that I'm just telling you what I've heard from inside is that they won't release the evidence. Now that it's under seal and that there is
same thing with the JFK files. A lot of the information they gave, like nothing really new that people haven't been already talking about for literally years. And even I have done videos on the JFK assassination and given a lot more information on that. And, Operation Paperclip, things that NASA and so many other organizations have been doing for decades that are lying to people, these false flags, lies about the moon landings. And I know that this is controversial when I talk about the Challenger event, where I don't think that the astronauts died, these astronauts, and things like that. And so I'm a little bit conspiratorial on this stuff, but again, I share the receipts. And so even that, we're not getting a lot of information on 9/11 even. These are things where there's so much evidence out there and it's still not getting addressed at the highest levels of government and released to the public so that the majority of people within the friggin' world can wake up to a lot of this stuff and see just how fucking deep this goes. So many different things. But again, look at my older videos for that stuff.
A system right now in place that has locked the evidence down because of the Ghislaine Maxwell appeal.
Okay, that makes a slight bit of sense, but that's not the explanation that's being given. You said one explanation
makes a lot of sense. Like it makes a lot of sense. Go out and explain that, and then make a promise to the American people that they're going to get the evidence afterward. Like that's what you should do.
You said one explanation was not going to surprise me, and one would. Which one was the one that's going to surprise me, or was that it?
The one that's going to surprise you is that right now the Department of Justice, right now the DOJ has access to all of the evidence, everything that you've seen in the federal filings, everything, all the footage of the box of diamonds, the manila envelope full of passports, all of the strange things from inside of his home. I mean, the argument to be made here is to restore faith with the American people. Just release some of it. There's not a single human being on earth that's calling for predator material to be released on the internet.
Definitely not.
Nobody is calling for that. Nobody's asking for that. So just release some of it. That's all. Like just a little bit. Like his cookbooks, his paintings, his cars, text messages, emails, bank accounts. Where did he get his money? These kind of like little things would establish trust with the American people, and you could do that, and that's how you actually fix. That's how you set the pressure release valve. Like you let the pressure out a little bit, right? Instead of continuing to ramp up the pressure. But telling people there's nothing here and to go away, that's how you accelerate the pressure.
It was one of my things. Like I genuinely believe that Trump and America was pulled into those Iran strikes by Israel's, premature bombardment. But then Trump doesn't want to burn all the bridges or humiliate the people publicly, so he has to play along. Oh yeah, this was all part of the plan. I genuinely believe that this is possibly a matter of undermining the administration by humiliating the key people within it.
Totally.
Because you humiliate the deputy director and the director of the FBI, you get to discredit Trump's FBI. And I have a feeling that Trump's response yesterday about the Epstein question is him trying to loyally defend the people that he believes are loyal to him and say, look, all right, not move on in the sense that he's in a bad position now where he can't act in a way that would throw them under the bus if he wants to hold on to his FBI. What was your take on Trump's response to that question yesterday? I mean, I know
my take on it is that while the Streisand effect is going to apply in a major way here, he's clearly trying to defend his own squad, and he realizes that this is something that probably wasn't done correctly, and he's trying to just tighten it up and move along, right? And that's a strategy, right? But again, the Streisand effect applies where if you tell people in the year 2025, trust me, bro, we looked into it.
Yeah.
We're good. When you say that to people, like, it's going to make them question it even more. Some of their worst assumptions about Jeffrey Epstein is they're going to come out.
No,
right?
they're going to come out now and say that Trump foreign policy is controlled by blackmail, and that's why he made certain decisions to support or get involved in Iran. And it's wild. The question was this: the video footage which Patel talked about on Bongino a while back of the cell. I've been asking the question publicly. I haven't gotten not even a satisfactory answer. I haven't gotten recognition from anyone in the administration. They show 10 hours of footage showing that no one walked in or out of Epstein's cell. People on the internet are saying, congrats, that was not the cell. It was the one next to it, so you can't even really see what's going on. Set that aside. Assume that what they gave you is what they say it is. So it's 10 hours showing no one entered or exited Epstein's cell. My question is that even normal under prison protocol, especially for someone who was on suicide watch 2 weeks earlier? 8 hours of uninterrupted rest and peace, and pun intended. Have you ever asked anybody whether or not, even if assuming that's true, that's proper prison protocol?
It's not, or it shouldn't be. And I had a friggin' point about that and I lost it. It'll come back to me.
I've never asked anybody that. I would really like to go and explore that wing of the prison. Like, I'd really like to go. We actually made a request to go up there and to try and film, to show people what the conditions were. I think it's important for everybody to see, and the best that you can tell inside of the prison itself, there is absolutely no way that the camera angle that they gave us would show somebody being able to go into or out of his prison tier. The angle's all wrong. It's just the basic entry to the floor. It doesn't actually show Jeffrey Epstein's cell door, or even his tier. It's out of frame. So somebody conceivably could have gone into Epstein's tier and done anything they wanted to. Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, said on Kim Iverson's show that it's the guards who killed him. It's actually the only way that he was allowed to kill himself is the help of the guards. If the guy dying in federal custody in a maximum security prison, having been given like a bunch of extra linens and a bed to hang himself from, like, let's just assume.
So that's what I was going to say. So Epstein was saying, and I shared so many accounts of this, of data that I had researched, and I've done videos on this, where he was adamant that he was not suicidal. And when they were trying to allege that he had tried to kill himself, I think it was the 2 weeks prior, he was saying that he believed that it was his jail mate that had attempted to kill him. And I got distracted because I just remember in 2008, there was someone that was a new member into my platoon that came from a different organization. And he ended up being confined to, he was picked up by the military police because of an incident. And while he was in the drunk tank, whatever you want to call it, he did end up killing himself. And there was a huge investigation into it, and rightfully so, just like, how could this happen? And so after that, what came out was, at least for the brigade that we were part of, it's every 30 minutes, people are supposed to do watches on people, especially if they're possibly suicidal. And that was in 2008. It's like 17 years ago. And so things, like that there should be, if there wasn't protocols in place for that, if someone's allegedly on suicide watch, like I'm literally shocked at hearing that, especially given just like how often this, can possibly happen.
That he did hang himself, that alone is a massive scandal.
Well, that's someone says suicide watches are checked every couple of hours, except he was taken off suicide watch 2 weeks before after allegedly having attempted to take his own life. I'd like to know who was the doctor, psychiatrist that recommended that. But I take it at its face value, what they showed you, no one went in or out for 10 hours. That's a conspiracy. And that he had extra linens to do this is the conspiracy.
Yeah.
How much damage do you foresee this doing? Because they want everyone to shut up and move on. I'm not shutting up. I'm not moving on. What do I know? I don't have any inside information or even extra information. I can just go by based on what they're saying, what they've said in the past, what they're saying now, what they said within the last 3 months. None of it makes any sense, and it's going to do damage. What do you think the scope of the damage is going to be?
The most common thing that is said in American politics is promises made, promises kept, right? And to their great credit, the Trump administration has kept a ton of promises, whether it be mass deportations or whether it be the tightening up of some of the January 6th prosecutions. They've
That's true.
Just brought charges against James Comey and John Brennan. Okay, that's cool. There have been some major promises kept. But this was a promise. Like, we didn't make the promise. It's something that the base was calling for. And so the promise to the base was that we would treat this with the respect and focus that it deserves, and that you're going to get a full disclosure here. And those promises were made by high-level Trump administration officials, some of them on my show. And they said, we're going to release everything. And there's not going to be a billionaire or a prime minister or a head of an intel agency or a former president that will be protected. And you're going to get it all, and we're not going to protect pederasts. And so that's their promise. And so I really don't know where to go from here. Because just wrapping it up and saying there's nothing to see here, don't worry, we checked on it, bro. That you have to show your work. Like, we are in an era where you have to show your work. So let's say you absolutely had to do that. Let's say the truth is that he was working for a ton of intel agencies, and we can't let you see any of it because it's too damning and it would collapse the whole damn diseased church. Okay. Well, you have to go out on TV and say it. Sorry, you got to do it. You got to go out there and say, you know what? He was working with intel, and it's nasty, nasty business, and all of it's classified, and we're not allowed to share it, and it sucks, and it's terrible, and you have to come out and say that. You have to explain yourself. You have to explain your work here. You can't just say, in spite of all of the evidence that we've seen, including evidence of, let's just say this. So the headline at Axios was, there was no blackmail. Well, we've literally watched Epstein blackmail people. It has been well reported that he blackmailed Bill Gates.
There you go, Bill Gates.
It has been well reported
that guy.
that Bill Gates was hooking up with a 20-year-old young Russian bridge player, and that Epstein introduced them, hosted them. We all know what that means. And that he was blackmailing Bill Gates during that time period. This has been well reported. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, this has been well reported. So to come out and say that that didn't happen is an absurdity, and it insults intelligence. So I'm not sure what the way out is now. Now that this has been done, I mean, I'm not sure what you do next.
The article's 2 years old. Jeffrey Epstein allegedly tried to extort Bill Gates over extramarital affair, and the fact that it's 2 years old means it's like maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe Patel was wrong. Bill Gates was not begging Congress or whatever, to not release the list. Maybe the speculation of Bongino was wrong. I happen to not think it was. I think it was absolutely accurate. I think they had probably better intel based on their sources at the time than they do now, because the very same, this is what drives me crazy, Benny, the very same literal criminal organization that they are now investigating. Did they press charges against Comey? Not yet, right? They've only announced an investigation, a criminal investigation, I think.
Yes.
They're saying it was a criminal FBI DOJ organization that handed the file over to us, and now we can rely on those findings. But by the way, it was a criminal organization. Now we're going to go investigate them for Russiagate. You cannot hold those two thoughts and those arguments in your head on paper at the same time. It's ideologically, intellectually incompatible. I don't know what the answer is to this. I don't believe Trump was on it. I believe there's obviously, I say, good reasons for making certain mistakes, and maybe this all pans out well at the end of the day. But forgiving and forgetting and just moving on is not really an option.
But it should make them very angry, because the actual criminality was done by previous regimes. It's the easiest get out of jail free card ever, which is saying, like, the scumbags are the ones who did this in 2008. Where were we all in 2008? Donald Trump was a TV host in 2008. They're the people who really let the guy off, and they're the people who let him out of jail free. And so why are we having to suffer from the sins of previous deep state administrations? And so I would love to see that motivation.
Like, Bush is still not being held accountable for 9/11.
To get to the bottom of it, because there's no reason that this live grenade should have been landed in the lap of the Trump administration and exploded.
Have you asked any of your sources why the memo was undated and unsigned? I've asked whoever I know on the inside, haven't gotten any answer yet. Have you asked that question?
Got no answer. It's so strange. Why would it be leaked to Axios? Listen, again, if you have to do this, Viva, the way to do it from a media perspective is you go and you sit down, you book something, probably like Brett Baer and Martha McCallum, right? You book like some hard news show on Fox, and you go there, you're going to get tough follow-up questions. You answer questions for a straight hour. Then you go do a press conference on it. You bring all of your material. You show your work. You show the American people why you came to your conclusion. A gleaming example of this is Tulsi Gabbard, who did a lot of press on the JFK documents released. She released hundreds of thousands of documents. Some of them were humiliating, actually, for the intel agencies. Some of them exposed, like Operation Mongoose, for instance, that they were creating bioweapons to drop on Cuba. Like, these are fully exposed in these documents. Everything from, Mossad and Israel and its nuclear program to cover-ups from the mob. It's all there. There's this big constellation that you can kind of put together with JFK. And while it doesn't solve, it's not perfect, and there were a few small redactions, generally it was unredacted. And the Trump administration just did that, and that's a promise made and a promise kept. And that's a great model for what has to happen with Epstein. To stop the feeding frenzy on Epstein, you have to release everything. And there are still more files to come out with JFK. But it's a good start, a really good start that built trust with the American people. And they should follow that model. They have to.
What do you make? I know you got an out in a couple of minutes. What do you make of the attempt to wash away what Pam Bondi said? Well, she said, the file's on my desk. I never said I saw it. And I'm like having this discussion with someone. I'm like, no, the question that led to that was the DOJ might be releasing the list of Epstein clients. Is that going to happen? And she says, there's no list. I'm not sure if there's an actual list. The file's on my desk. I'm going to look it over. And now after Bindergate, we're here. What do you make of the attempt to backtrack what she said on that Fox News interview?
I think that less said, best said in these circumstances. And that might have been a critical error, because when you're choosing the wrong words or you're saying the wrong things, people really care about that. Like, this is a case that people are going to study, and they have studied it, and there are true and proper experts on it. And it is very much on the level of the JFK assassination, where people know that they have been lied to by the federal government. They know there's a grander conspiracy, and they have covered the minute details. And so when you are misusing words,
it talks about, I've covered JFK assassination. I think I'm really close. Again, I don't think I'm perfect with it, because there's just, again, so much information that was also buried. But you've got Lyndon B. Johnson, you've got the Dulles brothers, you've got the Bushes, there's so many people involved in this deep state assassination. And the fall guy being Lee Harvey Oswald, MK Ultra stuff possibly as well. And you've got like Cubans involved. There's so much information that I've unpacked in that, where there were multiple shooters, and then also people within the government, again, not only involved in the assassination, but also possibly the shooters.
Words, or when you're lying, or when you don't actually have the files or the client list, it's going to really insult people. And so I go back to my original point, which is that I think that they didn't realize what a grenade that had been dropped in their lap. They didn't realize the pin had been pulled. I think they were not properly locked into how much the American public cared about this. And there's a good and decent reason why, Viva. The reason why they care so much is because we don't want to pay taxes to a pederast network, globalist cabal. That's like a pretty obvious and noble reason that everybody cares. And we would like to know that that's not the case. But unfortunately, the more that you cover it up, the more people start to think that's the case.
Benny, you don't need an introduction, but I'm going to refer everyone to your Twitter feed. First of all, thank you for coming on. It was short notice, and I think I'm coming back on with you tomorrow morning, right?
All right, great.
It's Benny. It's amazing. I don't know what can be done right now to sort of resolve this. I think trying to pretend that it's a very vocal minority conspiracy theorist bunch who are only interested in this is it's the most backhanded insult, or it's the biggest insult to Bongino and Patel, who have been vocal about this for years. So now to write off everybody as conspiracy theorists, it's shooting yourself in the foot yet again, or the other foot, I should say. I just don't know how I'm waiting for a good explanation, and trust is not the good explanation. Trust is just the process that gets you through, or at least the underpinning, so you don't take a big black pill. Benny,
yes,
I'll see you tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock.
All right, that was good. I did link all the videos that I shared on my on this video. I was taking a look at my Instagram concurrently to see if I can find that clip I have of the JFK assassination, what I think to be very close to the truth. But it might take me a little while, because it's something I posted a few months ago, and I post a lot. But so that might be for tomorrow's episode. Let me see here. Yeah, it might take me just too long to to find it. So yeah, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your night.